Super Cat, they know. What?
Hey.
What?
Hey.
What?
Hey.
What? What?
Hey.
What?
Hey.
What?
Hey.
What?
Hey, sports fans, this is Robert with WTP Sports Dudes, here live on this fine Sunday morning, here ready to talk a little bit of post-spring for my Texas Longhorns. Sorry about I'm a little bit late, and sorry about I ran my man Parlay Pose intro, so my bad on that as well. But we want to talk a little bit of Longhorns, what happened with them during the spring, after the spring, so that we can get a better outlook on what this Texas team is looking like at this point during the season, going into fall and summer workouts where the players will be doing a lot of weightlifting, probably working out with each other and also doing some reps with each other in their skill positions without the coaches, of course. Um, so hopefully, they'll do everything they need to do and they'll come out of that summer workout injury free. But I wanted to answer some of the questions that I received from some subscribers um, over the past week or so since Texas ended their spring on last Saturday when they had a fan appreciation day where they ran a scrimmage instead of having a spring game. They had a fan appreciation scrimmage where the fans got a chance to go in there and see the players work out, do drills, and do a little bit of scrimmaging. And Texas seemed to come out of that pretty healthy. A couple of guys are nicked up, but in time, those guys will be okay. No serious injuries coming out of the spring. But let's go ahead and get into some of these questions because I don't necessarily want have to take a whole lot of time. But we'll go as long as we have to. And if you're in the chat and you got any questions about the Texas Longhorns going into the summer, after their spring and going into the fall, please put them in the chat and I'll address those questions as well. As we all know, Kurt Bowles, who writes for the Houston Chronicle, he did an article about Texas. And so the question is, how true is it that Texas is spending 35 to 40 million in NIL for this year's team? It's very true. I mean, if you look at the market in college football, in college athletics, period, it is going up. It's not going to go down until this collective bargaining thing takes place and they change a couple of the rules as it relates to NIL, which right now is really pay for play. It's really not NIL, even though some guys are getting name, image, and likeness deals with certain companies and corporations. Most of that money that players are getting are coming from donors, boosters who are just giving money to the athletic program for this use, to give it to those players so that you can sign the best of the best players to a nice package so that you can keep those players on your roster. And a lot of times when those guys jump into the portal, they're jumping into the portal looking for a better situation monetarily and also for playing time as well. But the money really is fueling this thing right now. And yes, Texas is definitely spending 35 to 40 million on this year's roster. When you think about it, Nico was asked in Tennessee for 4 million. Now we got Arch Manning, and right now he's living off of the name, but we seen him a few times last year in some games where he started he started 2 games, but he played almost a whole game when Quinn Ewers went out. So you could imagine that this young man is probably up around 6 million. So that's going to leave you anywhere from 34 to 29 million. And then you signed a bunch of defensive linemen in the offseason because you got to have a good defensive line. You also got a wide receiver that came in. You also got some good wide receivers that's there. You got running backs. You got offensive linemen. You got a lot of players who are going to garner a lot of financial money. So, of course, I can see Texas being up around 35 to 40 million. I believe they are, and don't think that they're going to be the only team in that range. If you're an Ohio State fan, if you're a Georgia fan, if you're an Alabama fan, if you're any university that got major boosters, major funders, you are going to be in that age range, that price range. Oregon, you just wait until everybody else. Just Texas just happened to come out like last year. They were talking about Ohio State's figures coming out with the $20 million last year. This year just happens to be Texas. But even last year, Texas outspent Ohio State. They spent 20 million, but Texas spent 23, and I think Oregon was second with like 22 million or 21 or 22 million. So it's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's just the way this nature of the game is right now until this collective bargaining agreement comes and they can go ahead and change some of the rules so that you may not be getting as much money from boosters and funders. Like Texas has the Texas One Fund, where they just raise a whole lot of money for NIL for the purpose of being able to give these players nice packages. SMU has done it. Every university is doing it right now. Until the rules change, that's where they're going to live at. They're going to live in that gray area of the rule and make sure that their players are getting compensated, because that's the nature of the game right now. Until, like I said, collective bargaining changes some of the rules up in that. So, yes, Texas is definitely spending $35 to $40 million this year on their roster. I got my man FanDuel Zay. He's in the chat. He said, did you hear about President Trump and Nick Saban meeting about limiting NIL? Trump is considering writing an executive order. I mean, he's writing so many freaking executive orders. I can see him doing that. And the reality is this: if he's going to write it, and I haven't heard about it, but what you mentioned it, I'm quite sure that it is very, very true. I think Nick Saban has been a guy who really feels like this NIL is really messing up the sport of college football. So I think that they should meet. I mean, Trump is the president of the United States right now. Whether we like it or not, the reality is he's the president. So if we see something wrong with something that is going on in our country, we expect for our president to step in and try to help fix things, regardless of how you feel about it. I trust Nick Saban, and I think Nick Saban will be willing to do the right thing for college athletics, for college players, because he wanted them to get paid. He just wanted it to be a situation where it was under control, not out of control like it is right now. And I think that it's a smart move for the president to probably try to score some points right here with the American people and try to fix this NIL thing, because it is in shambles right now. So I think it's a good move. I think he's chosen a good person to do it with. Hopefully Nick Saban will bring in some other coaches or former coaches like a Mac Brown, a Rick Neuheisel, somebody like that to come and sit down with the president as well so that they can figure this NIL thing out. Because paying players is not going to go away. It's going to always be here because it's here already. But they do need to get a handle on it. And I think it's a smart move by President Trump to meet with Nick Saban, regardless of how anybody feels about President Trump. The reality is that thing needs to get fixed, and that's a smart move by him to do so. For those of you who just came in, we're talking about Texas Longhorns this morning, and we talked about the question of is Texas spending $35 to $40 million on NIL for this year's team. And Kirk Bowles of the Houston Chronicle, I believe, broke that story earlier this week, well, last week, where he was stating that Texas is spending upwards of 35 to 40 million on this year's roster, which is true. I mean, you're going to see other teams that's going to do that as well. And then also, FanDuel Zaya had a question in there. He was asking me, did I hear about President Trump meeting with Nick Saban to talk about this NIL situation? And so I addressed that a little bit too, even though I hadn't heard that yet. I'm glad that he brought it to my attention. I'll go look it up later on today. But I think it's a good move because NIL needs to get under control. It's a little bit out of control right now. Another question that was asked by a subscriber was what happened in the Nick Brooks situation where he got a DWI. So for those of you who don't know who Nick Brooks is a true freshman left tackle at Texas who happened to go out on a prominent street where the players like to go and fans like to go and have a good time. Like on major campuses, you always got a strip where you can go and party and have a good time. And so this young man, Nick Brooks, knew about a strip club that he wanted to take some recruits to, and he had happened to be up under the influence of marijuana. He had smoked a blunt and had a marijuana pen that he had smoked, so he was so-called feeling it. So he was pulled over for doing 47 in a 30-mile zone. So he got pulled over, got a DWI. Of course, Steve Sarkisian is one of those coaches that he's going to do everything he needs to do in-house. He's not going to publicize it. Even though he mentioned it in his press conference, he's not going to tell you what he's going to do to reprimand a player. He's going to do whatever he's going to do. But hopefully, whatever happens, he lets this young man know that, listen, this is not what we do at the University of Texas. We got to keep ourselves out of the news with negative publicity and, things like that. And he's underage for one. And then you want to take some other underage young men to a strip club where I'm quite sure it's popping because Austin is a really, really nice city. And I'm quite sure it's a nice facility. But those are just things you just can't do at any university. So hopefully this young man learned his lesson and he understands that this is something that you just can't do here at the University of Texas or any other university. And hopefully this because he's projected to be second string left tackle and possibly right tackle, much like you've seen Trevor Goolsby do last year. So he's a very important figure on this roster, even though he is a true freshman. He's a really, really good athlete out of Atlanta, Georgia. So hopefully things go all right with that young man in that situation. Based on that question, another question was presented by a subscriber. What's your thoughts on some of the college athletes getting into trouble lately with police incidents? The thing that really hurts me about these young people is they get these cars, man, and they start driving fast in zones where they shouldn't be driving as fast as they're driving. And then the one incident of the young man from LSU who was driving and caused the accident where there were fatalities. And this young man ended up taking his own life because he didn't want to face going to prison for a long period of time, man. And we just don't want to see that for our young people. So hopefully at every university, like they should be teaching financial literacy, they should also be teaching this situations like this where, listen, you're getting this money now, you're getting cars. Please do not go out there speeding, exceeding the speed limit. You still got to drive cautiously. People's families are on these roads, and you cannot afford to have a situation like that where you're taking someone's lives. I think Georgia had like over the past 3 to 4 years, they've had like 22 different players have incidents where they were speeding or driving recklessly uh, with their players. I mean, this is something that just got to get under control. Just like NIL got to get under control, these young people got to understand that there are people's families on these roads as well as you are, and you got to respect the laws, the driving speed limits, just like everybody else. And I think that as coaches, you have to address this situation with them. And you may even have to start having some very strict punishments for these individuals, whether it be suspensions, whether it be removing those players from your team. Because I'm telling you right now, if you're a player who is not a prominent player on that team, they're most likely probably going to get rid of you. And you can't afford that because you got a scholarship where you're going to school for free. You're making a little bit of money uh, if you're one of those players who aren't playing a lot. And you got a chance to get a free education, a chance to really build up your financial wealth if you do it the right way. But you can't be getting in trouble like in the case of Nick Brooks and the young man who ended up committing suicide, and these Georgia players who who did the things that they did. And even Isaiah Bond, who hurt himself in the NFL draft, who didn't get drafted because he ended up catching a case a week or two before the NFL draft where he was said to have committed a sexual assault on a young lady. You just can't afford to put yourself in those positions, man. You have to be smarter than that. You have to be. And I understand being on. I wasn't a college athlete, even though I played athletics in high school. I saw how women would be attracted to the college athletes when I went to Central State, because at that time Central State was a really, really good football program, and those guys attracted the ladies at Central State. But you got to be careful with that because it's best for you to settle down on a good choice and that be who you with. You can't be juggling a whole lot of women because nothing good comes out of juggling a whole bunch of women. So hopefully these college athletes can put themselves in a better position in the future and not be out here like my man FanDuel say, crashing out. The next question from a subscriber: where do you think Texas will rank in the first college football rankings? That's a really good question. I think Texas has done themselves a really good service by making sure that they got all the pieces that they need to be competitive in college football again. Now, 4 or 5 years ago, Texas was not competitive. But here lately, Texas has been really, really competitive. They've been a really, really good football team. And a lot of people felt like them going to the SEC was going to hurt them. They was going to be at the bottom of the barrel because they weren't doing so well in the Big 12. But here lately, Texas has been a really, really good football team. Really, their athletics as a whole has been really good in the SEC as it was in the Big 12 outside of football. But I think Texas will probably be ranked in the top 5 for sure. I can definitely see them in the top 3, probably be behind a Penn State or Ohio State, teams like that, and possibly even Oregon. But definitely I can see them in the top 5, possibly even the top 3. I mean, they could even be number 1 because they're one of the best programs right now in college football. And a lot of people will probably say because of that $35 to $40 million NIL package they got going on right now. My man FanDuel Zaya says top 3. He sees them being in the top 3. And my man Parlay Poe wants to know, with all the players lost, besides Arch, who are the starters at the skill positions? That's a really good question as well. So, of course, Arch Manning is going to be quarterback 1. At the running back position, it's going to be Trey Wisner again to start off the season until we get Cedric Baxter fully healthy. and we get Christian Clark fully healthy. As you all know, CJ Baxter suffered an ACL last year, but he has been practicing. He has been suiting up, but he won't be a go. I don't think he'll even play against Ohio State. But once he gets back fully healthy, during that stretch of games right after the Ohio State game, I can see him there at running back and Trey Wisner. At the wide receiver position, of course, it's going to be Ryan Wingo um, and DeAndre Moore in the slot. And then on the other end, we're going to be starting redshirt freshman Parker Livingston. He's going to shock a lot of people. If you ever seen Jordan Shipley play and his brother Jackson Shipley play, he's similar to those guys, but a little bit taller. A little bit taller. So at those skill positions, offensively, you're going to see them. We had to go in the portal and get a really good tight end by the name of Jack Indris out of Cal. We needed a tight end bad because we didn't have a tight end that was ready to roll out there like we had the past 2 years with Gunnar Ham and JT Sanders. So we got him at the tight end position. At the cornerback positions, at those skill positions, you're going to see Jalen Gilbo probably go from the slot receiver, the star position, out to playing one of the corner positions along with Manny Muhammad. And then in the safety room, you're going to see second team All-American. Oh, man, how can I forget my man's name? Well, anyway, we're going to have next to him is going to probably be Jelani McDonald, who played a lot of safety last year. And once we get Derek Williams back from his ACL, Derek Williams, and then I can't believe I can't remember the walk-on's name right now. Dang. Michael Taft. Yeah, Michael Taft at the safety position. Then in the linebacker room is going to be off the chain. Of course, he's probably going to be an All-American this year. Anthony Hill, probably the best linebacker in college football. And then you got Leona LaFau, and we got Spence from Arkansas. So those guys are going to be really tough. And then our edge room is going to be sick because Colin Simmons is going to be a true sophomore, but his get off the edge is going to be unbelievable. This guy, he really studies film to the point where if you go watch some of his film, the tackle was still in his stance, and he's already going to his second step. A lot of times people are looking at it saying this guy is offsides, and he hasn't had but maybe one or two offsides calls on him last year. But this guy, he times that thing so perfectly because he studied tape and studied film so much that he understands when that ball is going to get snapped, and he's already off and running. And then you have Ethan Burke on the other side, who is going to be more for run support. But then whenever we have to go into some kind of rush package, you'll see Trey Moore, who's also playing offside linebacker. You'll see him on the edge as well, along with the young man Zena. So you'll see a lot of those skilled guys out there. And then we got a wide receiver in the portal that we needed because we needed some portal depth because those young guys probably aren't up to speed yet. So we had to go get a wide receiver, Emmett Mosley from Stanford. Another subscriber's question. How well did Texas do in the transfer portal? So they brought in, I believe, 9-10 guys in the transfer portal. They're really, really good. They filled all the voids that they needed to fill. Like I mentioned earlier, they needed to get their D tackle room together because if you go back and look, 3 years ago they lost Keandre Colburn and Moro Jomo. And then 2 years ago, they lost Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy. And then this year, they lost Alfred Collins and Vernon Broughton. So that defensive tackle room was really thin. The only player we had still there because guys hit the portal that left Texas, the only guys we had there were Alex January, because Sadir Mitchell decided to leave. Andre Bryant, Aaron Bryant decided to leave, and a couple of other guys. So our defensive tackle room was bare, but we brought in five defensive tackles who are going to be major guys, two of which got 2 years of eligibility left, and they're going to be at Texas for 2 years. So that was a good move to go ahead and get somebody to play with Alex January for the next 2 seasons. So they did really well in the defensive tackle room. They got a freshman All-American out of Syracuse, Levon, Moran Watson. So, no, that ain't his name, but whatever his name is. But anyway, we got that guy who is going to help us a lot. We got a couple of guys out of the Big Ten, a couple of guys out of the ACC that are really going to help us on the defensive line. We needed to get a wide receiver. I mentioned him earlier, Emmett Mosley, and we got a really good tight end out of Cal. And then we needed some special teams help because if you watch that Georgia game in the SEC championship game, a game that Texas should have won, they missed 2 field goals. And then when you look at the game against Arizona State, we had a chance to win that in regulation, and he missed 2 field goals in that game as well. So Bert Auburn is no longer with the team. He transferred out. He hit the transfer portal. But we brought in our kicker, Mason Shipley, from a smaller school who has a leg. He's been kicking 60-yarders. So we really needed that help there. And then we got another punter because the punter we had, Michael Kern, who was a true freshman last year, just wasn't up to snuff. So we got Jack Bomeister coming in from Utah, who is, I think he's a grad transfer. So we really needed that help on special teams because we weren't able to flip the field. A lot of times we was relying on our defense too much, and we won't have to do that this year because we got two solid guys who have a lot of experience kicking and punting. And I guess, of course, Will Stone will still do the kickoff duties for us, which he's done that for the last 3 years. So we're good in those spots. So we did really, really well in the transfer portal. We were able to get the pieces that we needed to get to help this unit out. I thought we would get a defensive back, but we did not get a defensive back. It's not too late, though. We might end up getting a grad transfer at some point, possibly. We probably need that position, probably needs some help because we got a bunch of young guys behind Jalen Gilbo and Malik Muhammad. Who will Texas most likely roll out in the first unit at wide receiver? We talked about that a little bit earlier with the question from Parlay Poe. I'm sure it's going to probably be Ryan Wingo, DeAndre Moore, who has been nursing a foot injury in the slot. And then on the other side, it's going to be Parker Livingstone. But I think the transfer, Emmett Mosley, is going to get a lot of run. But then outside of that, we got a lot of young wide receivers, Dylan McCutcheon, Jamie French, and Khalid Lockett. Those guys are young, but those guys are making progress. But we're going to need to get those guys up to speed because Steve Sarkisian likes to have a circle of trust with his wide receivers, guys he knows that's going to go out there, got good hands, going to run the right routes, going to be in the right places they need to be. And he likes that to be at least 6 deep. So if we can get the 6 deep at that position with some of those young guys, Texas will be in really, really good shape. Really, really good shape. Yeah, I've been hearing a little bit about Khalid Lockett as well. Him and Dylan McCutcheon really has been the wide receiver that's been standing out lately, going towards the end of spring because this guy, he's coming from a system where they run a pro style and the route running is exceptional. So he's been the guy who has really been probably leading Jamie French and Khalid Lockett because of his route running and his understanding of Sark's system. But trust me, Khalid Lockett, I think is ahead of Jamie French right now for sure. So that's a good catch right there, FanDuel. Texas got a lot of D-tackle help in the portal. How well will this unit look in comparison to the last 3 years? I talked about that a little bit with us losing two D tackles every year for the last 3 years. But I think this group is going to be really, really, really good. Now, the thing that they're not is they're not like you had a Byron Murphy who you knew was going to be able to get in the quarterback's face from the D tackle position. You had Vernon Broughton, who you knew was going to get in the quarterback's face from the D tackle position. And you had Moro Ojimo, who you knew was going to get in the quarterback's face from the D tackle position. This unit we got right now is not that kind of a unit. This unit is more of a run stopping unit. They're going to keep you from running in between the tackles. They're going to be really solid. They're going to be able to take on double teams to lead the edges with a possibility of getting to the quarterback maybe a half a click sooner than they had in the past couple of years. And I think that this defensive tackle unit will probably be better statistically in terms of rush yardage than the other three, even though the other three was really, really good. But I think this unit will probably be better against the run for sure, against the run for sure. Parlay Poe wants to know, what if a player is not performing up to his NIL package? What do you do? Well, from what I understand, in Steve Sarkisian's system, the way he runs things is every year at the end of the season, he brings every single player in and he shares with them, this is your value with this team. This is what we project to give you. And if you're not doing well, performing well, chances are you're probably going to go to a level below because you're probably not as important because your performance wasn't there. Probably with an incentive maybe to get more. I don't know exactly how he does things, but I know for a fact that when he brings those players in, he tells them this is your value for this team. And if you didn't perform well, he's probably going to say this is your value for this team this upcoming year. And if it's your last year, then you're either going to hit the portal or you're going to take it. Either or. But if it's not your last year, then you know you got another year coming. You got a chance to boost your portal for when you had that meeting with him the following year. He can say to you, hey, listen, you did really well this year. This is going to be your value going into next year, and this is what you're projected to make. But if collective bargaining comes and change those rules up to where Texas doesn't have the Texas One Fund, that might hurt as well. But that's the way he usually does things at the end of the season. He had those conversations with those players. And those players who hit the portal for Texas this year, those was players who he let know that, listen, you probably want to go play somewhere else because right now with what we got value-wise on this team, you're probably not going to get a lot of playing time. Outside of probably Sadir Mitchell, everybody else was expendable. And my man Fandu said the defensive line, I guess he's talking about, it's about to be barbecue chicken. Well, we'll see. We'll see. They'll get a really good contest on August the 30th. And that game right there will set the tone for where Texas need to go for the remainder of the season. What's going on, post game? Good morning to you too, bro. Good morning to you as well. I missed that when I was scrolling through. Another question that was asked by a subscriber was, Archer's quarterback one, how different would an offense be with him running the show? That's another really, really good question because Steve Sarkisian is not a coach or offensive coordinator or quarterbacks coach who like to run his quarterback. But I think what he has learned is the fact that, listen, you have to have an athletic quarterback. Quinn Ewers was a good college quarterback for us, but the fact that he wasn't able to buy himself enough time, and sometimes he made some bad decisions when it came to the pass blocking that was in front of him. He stepped into a lot of self-sacks And with Arch Manning having the athleticism that he has, his escapability is really going to be a great addition to this offense. And I don't think for 1 second that he's going to be running Arch Manning because he's an athletic quarterback. That's not his system. But he probably will run a little more RPOs because he knows Arch can pick up a 5 to 7 yard second down play if he has to. If he has to. But don't think for 1 second he's going to be running those run plays when it's 1st and 10 with Arch Manning, like your boy Tom Herman was doing with the quarterback that we had, Sam Ellinger. Now you won't see that, but what you will see is a lot of RPO, a lot more RPOs, and a lot more play action pass because Arch Manning is a really good deep ball thrower. So he's going to really be able to open up everything that Steve Sarkisian wants to do offensively to keep the defense on their heels. And by mid-season, by the time we play Florida, I think that Arch Manning is going to really have a good grasp of the system, and he's going to be able to really take Texas to a different level on the back half of the season where we have some really, really tough games to play. We got all of our rivals is in the back half of the season. Outside of Oklahoma, we play them games 6. Well, you can say that's back half of the season. I think we got Georgia the back half of the season. We got Florida. We got Arkansas. We got Texas A&M. Those are some really critical games where Texas has to go on the road to the Swamp and to Athens. So those are two really, really big games in the back half of the season, and we really need Arch Manning to really make that next step in terms of playing the quarterback position. And I think he will. He's a really, really good student. He's a really good student of the game. He's not going to be a guy that's going to be high and low or be down on himself if he make any mistakes. And I think with his athleticism, he's going to really be able to do some real things with him. Because whenever Texas had trouble defensively, it was because the quarterback had legs. Will Levis gave him some issues with his legs. Of course, Will Howard gave him trouble with his legs. He picked up some crucial first downs. But then those other quarterbacks really couldn't throw the football. When you talk about Arkansas's quarterback, you talk about Texas A&M's quarterback. They couldn't throw the ball really well. But Diego Pavia gave Texas issues at Vanderbilt because he could throw and pass. And when you got a quarterback who can throw and pass, that's a defense's nightmare. So I think he'll be really, really good this year. And I'm expecting him to stay for 2 years. So that following year, Texas is really going to be lights out. This year, I think they're going to be really, really good. Next year, I think they're going to be exceptional. If Arch Manning stays, and I think at that time, Trey Owens, who will be the backup, will probably transfer out because we got KJ Lacey coming in behind him and then Dia Bell after that. So he'll probably transfer out if Arch Manning stays for 2 years. How stacked is the running back room? Well, the one thing about Texas here lately, when they've had Tashard Choice, and even before them when they had Stan Drayton, who was the former Ohio State running backs coach when he had Ezekiel Elliott, these guys really recruit really, really well at the running back position. Of course, Tashard Choice ended up going to the Detroit Lions this year, and one of the running backs that he was recruiting decided he's not going to come to Texas. But Texas had tons of guys that they're high on, that they're going to get. But for the running back room that's there now, it's a really, really good running back room. We've gotten things out of Trey Wiseman that we didn't know he had when we had to pit him in action last year. Of course, we got to replace Jaden Blue, who went on to the NFL. But if C.J. Baxter can come back 100% healthy, along with Jared Gibson and Christian Clark getting 100% healthy, that running back room is going to be really, really nice. You'll have a four-headed monster you can go with, and even sprinkle in a little bit of Ricky Stewart, who is more of a scat back, who can probably fill that role as the Jaden Blue role of catching the ball out of the backfield. But I think that this running back room is going to be really, really good, really, really good. Hopefully, we can run better inside zone than we did last year. And I think the position players that we got now at center and the two guard positions are better at inside zone and run blocking than they are at pass blocking. So hopefully we can still run outside zone like we did most of the time last year, but also couple that with some inside zone running to really help that running game go to the next level. But we're playing some really, really good football teams this year, and they got really, really good defensive line. So hopefully we can make that happen with that running back room. But there's some talent there, and there's always going to be talent at running back at Texas. Are there any players who transferred out that you wish were still there? Um, I mean, all of them. I wish all of them were still there, but I understand you gotta go on to a place where you think you can play. But I didn't understand Sadir Mitchell leaving Texas to go somewhere else because the reality was Sadir Mitchell was going to be the number one defensive tackle for Texas this year. He was going to be the man. And you're talking about a kid who's 6'5", 6'6", like 350 pounds. But I think his issue was he wanted to stay. He didn't want to work hard and keep his weight down. Texas wanted him to get down to about 330, 335, 340, but he had trouble controlling his weight. So, and Texas was hard on him about him not controlling his weight because the reality is when you play a defensive tackle, you got to be able to get off of blocks and get to the ball carrier. You got to get off of blocks and put pressure on the quarterback. You can't just be a guy who they can double team you and just stuff you right there, and then they can run the crease right behind your back. You can't be one of those guys. You got to be a guy who can get off of blocks. And you can't do that as well at that heavy of a weight. You still got to have some agility to you. And even though he has those skill sets, you can't do it as well with all that weight on you. So I think that's why he ended up going out. Jonte Cook, I wish he could have stayed at the wide receiver position, man. He has not, ever since he left the team, he has not ran into good situations. Now he's at Syracuse, but he left Texas. He went to Texas A&M, ran into issues at Texas A&M, went to Washington, ran into issues at Washington. I think he went back to Texas A&M. That didn't work out. Now he's at Syracuse. Really talented football player. Really, really talented. He got to get out of his own way, though. So hopefully Jonte Cook can find him a good home. And I thought Javion Cole, who was a backup defensive back, this is your time to play. But he went on, he transferred to Arizona, which is a really good system, too, to go for him to go to. They got really good defensive back play there at Arizona. So he decided to transfer out and go there. Those were all of the questions that I had from subscribers. If you got any questions out there in relationship to the Texas Longhorns, you can put them in the chat real quick, and I'll talk a little bit about what I think Texas will probably be looking like this year. While you pick some questions in there, I think for one, they're going to be able to defensively. They're going to be able to be the team that they always wanted to be defensively. They're going to be able to play a little bit more press man. Now, for those of you Ohio State fans, don't think for 1 second that Texas is going to be playing press man against Jeremiah Smith. They're not going to do that. But they want to play more press man because they got guys who can pass rush with the best of them. And I wouldn't be surprised if Colin Simmons had high teen sacks this year if he stays healthy, because the guy can really, really get after the quarterback. But they want to play more press man defensively like they've always wanted to. Now they got the personnel to do that. Texas has really been working on their personnel from the time Steve Sarkisian got there, but he had to do it in stages. First, he had to get the offensive lineman. He's done that. Then he had to get Of course, the quarterbacks, because he ended up getting Quinn Ewers, Arch Manning. Now he got Trey Owens, KJ Lacey, Diabell coming in. And then he had to get the wide receivers. Now he's working on edge because he was able to get Colin Simmons and those guys. And now he's working on the defensive line, which he's been having to go into the portal to get those guys. Hopefully, the guys that he got in this year's recruiting class will be able to start to solidify that as we get more guys from the defensive tackle position from places like Georgia and Mississippi, who produce some of the best defensive linemen in the country. When you want a real good defensive lineman, you go in Georgia and you go into Mississippi because they got a lot. I mean, Texas has some too, but Texas is more skill position guys than they are defensive linemen. What did I hear from the scrimmage from Fan Duzea? Well, what I heard was that Christian Clark really played really well, and that they were able to suit up some guys that was hurt. Like Ryan Wingo was able to come back and make some plays. Him and Arch Manning are really starting to connect, along with Arch Manning and Parker Livingstone. They're being able to connect. We didn't get DeAndre Moore on the field, which we really need to, because those guys, that wide receiver room got to really be able to gel. So we don't know what that's going to look like. I did hear that. The running back room with Trey Wiseman is looking good. And the offensive line is really starting to gel, but they got some work to go as well because they haven't been together for very long. They've only been together for 15 practices during spring. So those guys got to get it together. And that was evident because the defense was able to create some havoc on that offensive line simply because they haven't gelled. And the defense is always ahead of the offense in the beginning. And so I heard that. But I heard some really good things out of Anthony Hill in terms of his ability to be able to understand what needs to take place pre-snap, post-snap, which he's moving quicker, which is what we need, along with at the safety position, Jelani McDonald is playing really well, and Wardell Mack is playing really, really well at the star position, which those guys might be a rotational piece because once Derek Williams comes back, him and Michael Tabb will probably be the starting safeties, and then we can spin Jelani McDonald down to that star position. So there's been a lot of back and forth with those things defensively, and Santana Wilson has been getting a lot of run at corner along with Kobe Black. So those guys have been getting a lot of reps because we really need to be 2-3 deep at that cornerback position, because whenever you're playing a 16, 17 game season, a possible 16, 17 game season, you need as many players as possible to be able to give you valuable reps on that offense and that defense. Question from Fan Duzea. Have you heard about how well your two new offensive tackles have been holding up in spring practice against those All-American level? Yes, I have. And those All-American level edge rushers have been wreaking havoc on those dudes, man. And that's like I said earlier, that's good. That's been a work in progress for that offensive line. Now I think they're going to be a lot better because Trevor Gooseby has played a lot of football, but Brandon Baker is a redshirt freshman. I don't know if he played enough games last year to be a true sophomore. Those guys got some work to do, man. They got some work to do. But then when you think about it, you're talking about some edge rushers who have played a lot of football in comparison to those offensive linemen. So now that we got a good tight end, we're going to be able to do some other things to help those tackles out. Now, the first game of the season against the Ohio State Buckeyes, and that's going to be one heck of a test for them. But then they'll get 3 games where they can really work at gelling as a unit. So hopefully if we can come out with a victory in that first game against Ohio State, those guys will be able to get some reps in to really gel in those 3 games after that Ohio State game. But yeah, those edge rushers has been giving them hell. I did hear that. If you got any other questions, you can throw them in. I'm gonna probably go for at least another 5 minutes, possibly. If you got any more questions in there, but if not, that's cool too. I can go ahead and wrap it up whenever the chat slows down. Um, but one thing I like about the fact that Texas understands that even though there's a new format with the 12-team playoffs, possibly going to 16, they haven't shied away from having really, really good non-conference games against teams like Michigan, who they played last year, Ohio State. They'll get Ohio State this year. They'll get Ohio State next year. Then they'll get Michigan again, and then they'll get Notre Dame home back to back. I I think that's really, really good scheduling. And before that, they had Georgia, but they ended up going to the SEC, but they still played Georgia those two games. Anyway, they're playing them again this year. I like the fact that they haven't shied away from that because you really need to have those games on your schedule to really see where your team is at. And I think having Michigan last year, uh, even though they caught Michigan didn't have a solid quarterback. Even though they had a really, really good defense, they didn't have their quarterback roles and their system offensively worked out yet in that second game. I think if they played Texas later on in the season, they would have fared a lot better in that game. And I think having Ohio State this year gives them a barometer they can use to know what they need to work on playing against a really good Ohio State team the next two seasons, then Michigan again, and then Notre Dame after that. And I'm quite sure they're going to schedule some other guys further on down. It probably just depends on what's going to happen with the Big Ten and the SEC. What kind of moves are they going to make in the future in reference to this 14 and 16 team playoff? Are they going to come together and start scheduling interconference games with each other, much like you see in basketball when you have the Big Ten ACC Challenge or the Big 12 SEC Challenge, however they do that. I wonder if the Big Ten, I know they're talking about it. I want to see how that plays out and if that's going to take precedence over scheduling like you would expect it to do. So hopefully, you'll get to see big time matchups between the SEC and Big Ten every year, at least one game every year, because these two conferences are they're running the show right now, man. They're running the show, and hopefully the Florida States, the Miamis, and the Clemsons of the world can find a way into one of those two conferences, man. Because if they don't, they're in trouble. Definitely Texas or Wanda. Well, I don't want to mess up your name, but yeah, I do think that the odds will change by the time game one comes. I mean, anytime you got money going to be exchanged in reference to betting odds, it's going to change a little bit. But I think that wherever it is right now, I think it's going to start to lean further in Texas' favor, even though they're going on the road, simply because of the quarterback situation. I think when you look at it, Arch Manning is probably a more ready quarterback than Julian Sain is. So, and a lot of times the quarterback position drives those odds a lot of times and how well a team's defense is. I think defensively, they both are going to be really good defensively, but I think the odds are going to change, probably leaning towards Texas' favor, simply because I think Arch Manning is probably going to be a better quarterback in game one than Julian Sain is going to be. My man FanDuel Zaya, that's why we call him FanDuel Zaya, saying that no, it will not change anything about the money. because it's about the money. Maybe so, maybe so. You know more about that thing than I do, but I think it will change. It's gonna always go up a half a point or two, especially when you're talking about points, the over and under. I don't know about the money line as you're talking about, but you're saying your quarterback will be better. I mean, I hear you, but if your quarterback doesn't have the athletic legs, like I think I've heard you say before, FanDuel, if he doesn't have the athletic legs, that's a dying dinosaur right now in college football. You gotta have be able to throw the football and be able to have some escapability, some athleticism to be able to buy yourself some time. And if he's a dinosaur like Quinn Ewers was last year, he's going to be in trouble against that Texas defense. So I don't think Julian Sainz is going to be a better um, quarterback than Arch Manning. I really don't. Okay, Boy Wonder. Okay, Boy Wonder. All right, like Boy Wonder. Yeah. Okay, cool. I like that. Thank you so much, Texas Boy Wonder. Okay, we're gonna see how good of an athlete he is on August the 30th, FanDuel. Or you said they were saying he didn't have toughness. Well, he gonna need that too. Because if you ain't tough, you ain't running. I agree. I agree. Uh, Texas boy wonder he's gonna have trouble getting anything off because Texas is one thing about PK. PK has already figured out what he needs to do with the skill set that he has on that defense. He's going to have some things schemed up. He's going to be ready to take on this Ohio State team. He's not going to be shy about what he got to do in order to win this game. And I think that he is going to do what he needs to do to unleash Colin Simmons and that edge rush. And and if we stop the run, they're really gonna have some trouble. And I don't think Julian Sain is going to be able to read the coverage that we're gonna have blanketing Jeremiah Smith. He might go 1 for 3 again. Well, I mean, if FanDuel say if y'all win, I'm gonna have on a Ohio State shirt. But if y'all lose, then you're gonna have on a Texas shirt. I know the one you got hanging in your closet. I agree with that. I agree with that Texas boy wonder. He's gonna his height and his ability to speed of the game, he's gonna have some issues against Texas for sure. He's gonna definitely have some issues. He don't know that he's gonna have these issues yet, but he's gonna have them. And Ohio State, just like Texas is rebuilding their offensive line, Ohio State is doing the same thing. But the difference is, I think Ohio State offensive line is going against a better defensive line in Texas than Texas is going up against Ohio State's defensive line. I think the Texas defensive line, in terms of edge rush, is better than Ohio State's edge rush. Even though Ohio State got some athletes, they got some good players. I don't think they're Colin Simmons ready though. Y'all's wide receiver room is good because y'all got the number one wide receiver in the country. But when you say way better, I don't know about that. I don't know about no way better. They're going to all have to do a job against a defense that's going to be out there on the field. And y'all got a really good defense because y'all got probably the best safety in college football. But I'm telling you right now, Steve Sarkisian know how to put him in a blender, bro. He know how to put him in a blender. 6'1". Now you already know 6'1" is not a ideal quarterback size at 6'1", bro. You know that's not ideal. You got linemen that are 6'5", 6'6", 6'7" that you got to throw around, and then you got pressure coming from angles that you don't know where they're coming from. It's gonna be a long day. Yeah, I think that I agree with you, Texas Bull Wonder. They do lack star power and depth. Even though they got one really good defensive lineman, I think they lack star power and depth as well. FanDuel said the average guy is 5'9". He's not a tiny human. When it comes to the quarterback position, FanDuel, we all can agree that you want your guy to be at least 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", in that height range, because that's a big difference when you throw on behind linemen who are 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", in some cases even 6'7". So you want to be able to throw, especially when you gotta find throwing lanes. And when you got those big old bodies and you got rush band down on you, you got guys possibly blitzing like an Anthony Hill from his position. You got to be able to make quick decisions. And I think they're going to create issues for Julian Sang on August the 30th when it comes to that game. I think they really are. You saying no, you don't. I mean, I hear you, FanDuel. I hear you. You're a homer for Ohio State, so I expect you to say that. He said that he might be listed as 6'1" on the roster, but he might not even be 6'1". That's very true, because we know they inflate the numbers for sure. You saying we got to do better research, bro? Listen, the age of the short quarterback just really came into existence, and you see how well they're doing. You got Kyler Murray, who was probably the best, greatest Texas quarterback, high school quarterback of all times. He has trouble out there on that field, man. You got to create throwing lanes for those guys because those linemen are so huge. But when you got a guy who's 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", those guys can stand in that pocket and throw over that line because they can still see. Yeah, but you mentioned Russell Wilson, and that's a good comp. But they had to create throwing lanes for Russell Wilson, bro. They had to. He was one of those quarterbacks too. You got to create throwing lanes in your offensive system for those guys, not like you have to do with 6'4" guys, 6'5" guys. You don't have to create throwing lanes for those dudes. We might be quiet on the 31st, FanDuel said. We might be. But then again, we might be screaming and yelling and talking all kinds of shit because what we do to your Buckeyes, bro. It could be either way. But we'll see on the 30th. We'll see at the end of that game on the 30th. We'll see. Well, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here, man, because I got some other stuff I got to get done. But I appreciate everybody tuning in. I appreciate our sponsor, KT's Good Eats, LLC. You can find them here in Columbus, Ohio, on Instagram at Kevin J. Bird. That's Kevin J. Bird. That's BYRD on Instagram. Also, his sister owns Social Nutrition, Sips, and Good Eats. You can see them on 3136 Hamilton Road. You can find them there. Let me see. I see FanDuel trying to come in. You can find her there. She has really, really good nutritional shakes, really, really good energy teas, and some other things that can help you so that you don't have to eat so much. You can also supplement a meal with those shakes and those teas. And also, we got my man, the young man. Let me see. He's trying to come in real quick. No, he went out. We also got our young man, the Chief, who has his own apparel line. You can get some authentic shirts, jeans, whatever you want to wear. He can do that for you as well. Oh, thanks, bro. I appreciate it. I appreciate that because I had Parlay Poe's intro. So I appreciate you changing that up for me. Also, you can get his apparel line. You can find him on Instagram and on TikTok at the Chief DECHIEF.5991. Thank you all for tuning in. I appreciate y'all. You'll see us again this week, and you'll definitely see us again on Saturday and Sunday mornings. But until then, I want to say peace.